Hi, dear friends. Actually, there are five of us. Also, Valeria Stagnara and Konstantin Yakovlev is there. Konstantin is our moderator today.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
really
hello
glad to
guys.
see everyone.
Hi.
Well, hello people. So let's give the floor to Valentina also to present herself.
Hi. Hello, everyone. I'm a subtitler. I'm from Italy. And my main research field is now the use of CAD tools and the possibilities of machine translations applied to audiovisual translation.
Okay, so I will present myself last. I'm an English-Russian audiovisual translator. Lately, you could see my work on Netflix, but this is not all that I do. But I don't want this to be a bragging session for everybody who is participating. We have a presentation for our session. Do the people see it or not?
Now we see you and
I have started screen sharing my presentation.
just a second.
So I just can say there is a session on a audiovisual translation, let freelancers speak. So it would be great if Angela, Robert, Valentina, Konstantin tells everything that they think about audiovisual translation, not only in this accessibility aspect, but also in others.
Oh, now we see your presentation.
So we have compiled a couple of topics to speak today. We have already welcomed you all and introduced ourselves, but I also want to ask the audience at the terrace hall, maybe if anybody has been involved with audiovisual translation, maybe they can raise their hands and you can tell how many people are there.
Will be interactive, I hope.
So if you have done movie, cinema, subtitle, voiceover translation, raise your hands and you can count for us how many people in Dnipro.
You don't see, but we have one person here. Two
Okay,
persons.
and now who is interested to know about it? Let them raise their hands.
All of us.
Everybody.
Well, that's good. Now we know that at least our audience is interested. We will try to be interactive as well and welcome your comments, but let us start with a question that we probably cannot delete from the list of you, even if we don't think that it's not that important in some of translation areas. This is the state of the industry during COVID-19. We have all known that some major studios in different countries stopped their production temporarily, and some of them have already resumed them with different aids to combat coronavirus, but different entry restrictions still don't allow major movie releases to be released in film theaters. And also not all cinema theaters were open all over the world. I know that in Russia the plan was to open them on July the 15th, but now there are talks about August the 1st, and different regions can decide on their own. In Ukraine, the movie theaters had to be open for more than 3 weeks now, but they can have only 50% of seats occupied for each showing, drastically limiting the income of movie theaters. But we have seen the rise of video-on-demand platforms, and we can see on the graph during this year, it is the first time when revenue from from video games has lost to video on demand platforms. So that means that every year more and more people watch video on demand. And now I want to ask everybody on our panel to share their thoughts how the pandemic affected or didn't affect their jobs. For example, as for me, I didn't really feel any shortage of products because I had a big backlog of products to work on as subtitler. But so it may be the reason that I didn't feel any pauses. But now, as far as I see, I don't see any pauses that are longer than before. But maybe, as we say, it's good when the freelancers feel like they are on a leave, but after 3 days we start to actually feel worried about it. So what about you?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, please.
Yes.
Okay, if it's okay, I could start.
Yes,
Yes,
please.
yes, share your thoughts.
I have seen a real decline in work and activities, but not all of my activities are subtitle related. I think what we should all be aware of. Do you also hear me twice? Or is it just
Yeah,
me?
that's the problem. No, that's the problem.
Okay.
We have some echo, but it's not critical.
Okay, then because this is very irritating for myself to hear myself twice within 1 second.
No, it sounds okay here.
What I see at the moment is that the industry is totally consolidating. I think the big companies are rolling out high-tech tools and technologies. And so I think the industry is going to change, not only from a freelancer's point of view, but it's going to be probably also an impact on our work. I personally think that the month of September can be critical to us. And we will see how everything is going back to work after the summer. But it's rather unstable and interesting, and we will probably be rather demanding on all of us, even though I still think it's a good thing to be in this industry, definitely. I think the video on demand is certainly important and will remain so. Yeah.
Well, maybe if I can join in now, I'm not quite sure. I have. You can't hear me, but my microphone is open.
I can hear.
Microphone. Yes, here we are.
We do.
Okay. The point is, I would like to avoid the delay of myself in my ear, so I took it out, and I wasn't aware that I needed this one here. Okay. So I would like to agree with Alexander, I think, who said, well, we have less now, but I'm not quite sure if it is a corona thing or if it is just a summer hole. I'm not sure. I don't know. We had a lot to do in the recent weeks, but now it's really declining. It's more than a half. I actually almost didn't do anything this month. So I don't know if it is corona related, but it's really a lot. What's missing?
I just agree. Yeah, because if it's about the description, that's Maria. I think I have the same volumes as maybe 2 or 3 ago. Sometimes there are some less because the projects are older, but the system, the main system, then the grant system, the phones, they are working as earlier, but now in Zoom, and I think that I haven't just recognized that it was something, because it was always work in home office, nothing from home, nothing more.
So if I might say,
Valeria?
it's completely different here, as we had a huge amount of work all through the pandemic and now, and more work is coming. But maybe we have to detach the different field of audiovisual translation. We tend to consider it as a huge number of things. It's not only entertainment. I was working a lot with conferences, with online subtitling, streaming online, YouTube videos, and information stuff. Not only Apple TV or Netflix that are my main, let's say, clients. And that in the entertaining part, we had a complete stop of the dubbing process. So we had the subtitling going forward. So we had to rush to go online anyway, but we didn't have the dub. We usually rely on the dubbing translation. So we wait for the dubbing to be done, and then we just like copy and pick on the dubbing version and do the subtitling. This time we were rushed, like really completely overwhelmed by stuff to translate and subtitle because people were online all the time. So deadlines were really tight. And we are still working at these paces. So it's good. I suppose it's good. But
So,
we're
as we
working
can
like
see,
in a bad way.
yeah, so as I can see, the situation is different for different people, but this may be also because of different roles that we perform. And this is the next topic that I want to address. And on the next slide, I presented the issue with diversification AVT that can help combat the pandemic negative effects, if there are negative for anyone. I want to remind ourselves and also to introduce to the audience that is not yet fully immersed in AVT, audiovisual translation, that this is a large chunk of audiovisual translation that encompasses subtitling and dubbing, but not only. In subtitling, and there are always debates about what to consider audiovisual translation. For example, there is intralingual subtitling. It's when we do subtitles in the language of the show. But some say that we cannot just copy paste everything that the speaker says. We need to assess the reading speed, we need to simplify something, etc. There is also traditional interlingual subtitling, and there is also subtitling for the people with disabilities, for the deaf or people with some hearing loss, and it can be also intralingual and interlingual. Voiceover is different from dubbing, as we all know, but some people also want to include audio description as a type of audiovisual translation. And honestly, I see this as a true effect. And also, we need to not forget that sometimes we need to audio describe foreign films. Of course, there may be different translators to it first, but still, we translate from different culture of people who hear but don't see to the other way. And in these areas, we can perform different roles. We can translate, we can provide quality control, and we can also work with roles that are sometimes difficult to encompass when we talk about AVT. We can do different file conversions. We can provide clients with video with burned in subtitles if for whatever reason they need it in 2020. If we have our own studio, sometimes they ask to make some other video footages or to change music, and it can be also done. We can work in-house in studio, to control what is going on there. And we can also provide linguistic consulting, but this is not only linguistic, but also marketing. We can tell our clients what are the rules in the country, what are the current developments, etc., what will work in the country or what will not. And so I wanted to ask our panelists what different roles they perform and whether they started to perform more of them during these times. Folks?
Angela, Robert? Yeah. Robert, Angela, Valentina?
Well, ladies first, please.
Who's first? Okay, so I'm going. I think we should know at least a bit of all the roles you've mentioned. Like, you can't just be a subtitler and not knowing anything about all the rest of the roles. As you know, it's like a machine. So you're a gear and you need to work fine with all the other parts of the engine. So if I do the subtitling, I need to know what the dubbing translator is doing and what the dubbing actor is expecting from our work. So this way it works smoothly, let's say. Sometimes we are asked to be more technical that we're supposed to be, and sometimes I say like, I'm a linguist, I'm not an IT technician, but sometimes you need to really be able to solve the problems by yourself. So I think you have to have, I would say, deep knowledge of at least 3 roles and be able to perform all of them. I mean, if I am a subtitler, I need to be a translator, an AV translator, because I couldn't be otherwise. And I also need to be able to perform basic QC practices or LQA or anything like that, and be able to solve basic technical problems. So I might be not interested in voiceover, for example, not interested in audio description, which I don't know, I think, anything about, or STH subtitling, but I need to know how it works at least a little. So it's not many people working together as individuals, but it's working together as part of the same thing we're doing together. So I hope it's clear.
If I may join in, this is quite interesting because it's obviously completely different in Italy from Germany. Because in Germany, the subtitling world and the dubbing world is completely separated. There's no connection. These are 2 different worlds. They don't even
So you have,
communicate with
sorry,
each
Robert,
other. I'm sorry,
do
I
you
can't
have
hear you
2
right now.
different versions? Sorry,
I'm
Robert, to
sorry.
interrupt you, but you have 2 different translations for subtitling
Yes,
and dubbing, for example?
yes,
So, and
yes,
you don't talk
definitely.
to it? Okay, because
You don't even
sometimes
have
I
contact. You
do.
don't even, as a subtitler, for example, please. As a subtitler, for example, I don't even know who does the dubbing version. I don't know it.
Oh,
And it's very
here
often that
it's the
there are
same person.
2 different. No, not even that. It's most of the times it's 2 different companies who do the subtitling and the dubbing. We have in Germany a lot of dubbing companies. They work completely for themselves. All right, they don't do subtitles, and we have mostly in international fields, subtitling companies, they don't do dubbing. There's one company now who's trying to merge this, but actually there's no connection. And by the way, the dubbing industry in Germany, which is quite old, almost 100 years, this industry is extremely conservative. It's unbelievable. For translations, for subtitles, they say, okay, there we need linguists. But for the dubbing versions, they say we don't need linguists, we need speakers, because the one who makes the dubbing script needs to know how the voice actor is able to perform the text. So he is the one who makes a text, so that the voice actor is able to work with it. So these are completely different worlds. They are not connected.
It's
But it
really
works.
no, there's too much effort. I mean, you could do the job just once. Most of the time when I work
Yeah.
with a dubbing agency who has also
That's
the
what I'm saying
subtitling
all the time. But,
department,
you know,
I do they do the project management to allow me to work at the same time on the subtitling and on the dubbing version. So I would go and translate the thing just once and then send it to the dubbing director or to the dubbing adapter or whatever. And then on the same translation, I can perform the subtitle reduction and stuff. So, and sometimes it's the other way around. I get the translation already made by someone else, but I have the chance to communicate with them and ask them, it was a matter of lip sync, so I can completely change that stuff. Or is it a meaning I haven't got? So it was my mistake, it was your mistake, and we can put things together.
We would move to Italy anytime for that to fix that.
My house is your house.
You can also move to Russia.
Move. I think the
Because if you
problem
like,
is really that it's often quite inefficient in Germany. And it depends
So
also on
don't
the
take
larger
down
structure.
stereotypes.
So
Say it again.
as I see, yeah. So as I see, there are different approaches in different countries. I want just to jump in with what is in Russia. Actually, it's closer to Germany.
I would
Because
say that it's close. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay.
No, I just want to say.
Okay, if I say that something that you don't mention, you can jump in, because different rights for different translations are usually bought by different companies, and that's why sometimes companies need only subtitle translation or only dubbing translation. And we can talk about all different kinds of audiovisual content. It may be not TV shows, not only TV shows or films that are new to translate, to localize. It may be some educational content, etc. But also, I don't see a way in which I can do my translation twice, putting the same when making it for dubbing and for subtitling, because dubbing is all about, the proper dubbing is all about lip sync and talking. Even sometimes we need to match lip movements for different sounds. So I need to move all the sounds that are similar to close ups to those shots, and to sometimes add something when the speaker is off screen. But in subtitling, I have another problem, because people speak faster than they read, and so that's why I need to have different lines, different character limitations, and reading speed violations. So I really like to work on only one of these translations. But sometimes it leads to lack of communication between when something is always in subtitling, for example, songs, etc., or when the song is cited later in the movie, we need to cooperate. But for this, glossaries can be made. Maria?
I just wanted to point out that as a freelancer, I used to work at all directions, so subtitling and dubbing and voiceover, but I prefer some of them more. for example, I'm a fan of voiceover and I'm a fan of subtitling, and I usually receive from some firms and organizations really only subtitling work or only voiceover work. But sometimes you have audiovisual film or something like this that you need to make accessible for everybody. So you are the part of the team or a group and you're making subtitling, then closed captures to this, then you can do this alone or maybe with somebody and do voiceover. Not really much of dubbing because that's not so big deal, not for cinemas and others. But I would say that I completely agree with the Valentina. So if you're a Russian freelancer, audiovisual freelancer, you usually need to be universal freelancer. So you can do everything. Sometimes your editor or your QC manager tells, no way, I would never give you any task. But really, if you go to any organization or any firm that I was worked at, you usually is asked for different types of these audiovisual translations. So that's the point.
I think what is really important for the audience here, who is not typically already involved with audiovisual translation, know your market and know the businesses that are available for your language. And you should all be aware that it can be super complex and that what is true for Valentina or Maria is not true for my market, for instance. So I think you should be really not believe that it is only one audiovisual translation. There are many different standards and many different ways of doing this work. And every country is different, but also other work environments. So that's really interesting, but also an extra challenge for you guys. For
Okay.
everybody.
I think if I may,
Okay.
one thing
Just 1
is
minute.
that you shouldn't really be working by the rules. I mean, you get guidelines for one client, but they're not universal. So you need to know how, for example, subtitling works. What is the speed rate? Why there's such a speed rate? Why such a character limit? What is the audience? And then you're like the master of your own job. And then you know how things need to be done. And that's a good key, at least for me it worked, to access the market. Like, you don't know what you're doing. I'm a consultant. I solve problems. I don't create new problems. And so that's really helpful, because otherwise you might think, probably as a student, where can I get the knowledge I need to start? And you only get it by doing, by asking questions to the clients, to the people, to anyone who works in the sector, because otherwise you can't just study it on books, because books cannot obviously cover all the knowledge that you need to have to do this job. So don't be shy, just go on, ask.
So from the universality of the audiovisual translation, I will now give floor to Maria, and she will need to tell me when to present the next slide, to talk about the universality of accessibility of audiovisual translation. So Maria, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell that that's the really booming sector. So if you look at the numbers, there are approximately 10% of the world's population with different disabilities, and you usually speak
please
not only
put the slides on.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Not only physical or psychological difficulties or limitations or disabilities, but also learning disabilities. And there is a huge group of people with different language levels by reading, writing, or maybe calculating, by maths. So they really need some stuff that is not adapted, but is made accessible to them. So the next slide, please. If you look to the next slide, you can also see the numbers of people who has hear loss or visual loss. So over 5%, that means 360 million people are hearing impaired or have hearing loss, and it can be graduated in different groups. Of course, that's not always the completely hearing loss, but this is the huge group. So these 360 million people need closed captures. Next slide, please. Here you can see also why these people are in that group. So there are lots of mixed or conductive reasons. So it can be just simply allergy, and then you have a hear problem. So or if you're just going to work and can't hear anything in traffic jam or in taxi or in train, so you just want to receive information and you just want to have this time for yourself. So you take your smartphone and you read it. You watch and read without hearing, because if you use your headsets in underground train or something like this, then you can hurt your analyzers also. So the next slide, please. And if you look at the number of people who has vision impairment, there is 3.5% in the world population, and there is over 150 million people, and these people need audio description. So and there is only statistic that we have. There is not all people that took part on the questionnaires, and not every person has such papers that shows that he has or she has disabilities. That means, but this number should must be multiplied. So maybe there is not 200 millions, but 3 or 4 or even more. Next slide, please. And one of the reason is aging. So I understand I have glasses already. So maybe then I'm in 10 or 15, maybe 20 years, I will be this group. I don't know, maybe I can see better or worse, but I know that I would like to have audio description for myself to understand what's going on. Then I'm an old woman and I have my children, and I really like audiobooks and audio description, and I like doing it. Next slide, please. And the problem is, if you speak about working professionals, not everybody shows that a person has disability or some limitations, or because this person doesn't think about it. This person works. This person enjoys life. And if we make it a little bit better, why not? That's why this sector, we're speaking about it, about inclusive culture, about inclusion, and afterwards we have lots of devices, lots of techniques, lots of apps now. It make us able to make an accessible world. And one more time, that's really interesting for everybody who makes an internet site for clients, for companies, for schools, that more than 60% of web users will simply leave the internet site or internet page if it is not accessible. Or Instagram, you usually just look at the photos. If there any description under that, wonderful. If I'm hearing impaired, then I can receive the information. But if I'm blind or visual impaired, how can I get it? In Instagram, there is an option to put the description in it, but not everybody uses. But it's already good because they have this option. Next slide. Yeah, thank you. The next one more slide. Yeah, and if you would like to see more numbers, just look at the annual report from Cisco about digital transformations, and there are more than 80% of all internet traffic is audiovisual content, videos. And these videos need to have translation, interpretation, and accessible options for everybody. Next slide, please. So we usually speak about closed captions, live subtitles, or live caption also. It can be re-speaking or it can be made by humans, for example, in Zoom. Also about statistic and interactive transcripts, if we speak about open education platforms, for example, MOOCs or FutureLearn or Coursera and others, by interactive you can just follow the speakers. So it is colored or blinked or something like this, so you can follow what the person tells that teaches. And of course, audio description, you have also TVs with AD on this remote thing. I always forget the word in Russian and in English. So just to put another channel, and you can see, hey, AD, I needed this audio description. And of course, right now you can also see that the sector of live audio description, live AD is booming too, because there are lots of people who are visual impaired that couldn't use devices as there is speech to text and sometimes typing text to sound, so they need a descriptor to understand what's going on. And another sector is for cross reality. The next slide, please. And cross reality, there is an umbrella term for VR, AR, MR, mixed reality technologies. And I just want to put an example about immersive environment and multimedia for content with 360 degrees. So when can you can turn around and just look what's going on. And there is a big project by James Hendon about live audio descriptions for these 360 degree videos. So you can enjoy the Pacific Ocean. You can look at the fishes and look. You can hear what fishes are surrounding you by diving, and that's great. You can just look at this using the link. And the next slide, please. If you need to teach somebody how to make the world more accessible, you can just use also the open space, and you can find some courses on FutureLearn. My favorite is this digital accessibility. It is closed now, but all videos are on Vimeo. And the next slide.
This is the last for you.
Yeah. That's why I just thought yeah. The next slide.
But the next slide is mine, and I wanted to tell that when we talk about accessibility and inclusion, sometimes we forget that there are different platforms when those at least subtitles should be watched. So this is just several screenshots from my IPTV provider. I have mostly Russian channels. And as you can see, not always this is a good idea. Only a couple of TV channels have nice white subtitles with black borders. Some are pixelated and without borders. So when you see them on a background that matches their color, they're actually almost undiscernible. Some have positive delay. It's when the speaker tells something and you wait, I think, a couple of seconds until it appears. So the ad reel may be on, but you are still reading what was said during the video newscast or other show. But for me, the negative delay is even worse, because you start to read something that is not on the screen yet. Some TV channels are broadcast always with subtitles. but not all the channels have even that present. They show some mistake or either have a video lag if I choose a CC, which is actually SDH stream in it. Basically, the program brings subtitles from two streams. It's either a teletext, which is a history that SDH were put in teletext in Russia, or they're chosen from DVB subtitles if this is a cable channel that is rebroadcast from the satellite. And so just quickly, could our panelists say what about accessibility in their country? Just like a minute for each.
Shall I start?
Yes.
So I think we have hyper specialized people who do audio description. I know there's a particular agency here close to Rome that does just audio description, and you're basically not allowed to enter this sector because they do it so well that it's really impossible that you come by this kind of job. So I think that's quite an excellence. As for audio description, I'm quite sure not all the products are audio descripted now, but I'm pretty sure, for example, on Apple TV, for which I work, they do have audio description on all the products they have, and we usually use audio description to do the SDH captions, the subtitling. So I think maybe here, probably because we are not really sure if we are opening schools in September, we're going to have huge problems like to make the material accessible for all the children who have AHDH. I hope it is the right way to saying it in English. And for my experience, for example, as for university conferences, we had subtitling to explain clearly what the professor was saying, because sometimes, you start, as I'm doing now, you start speaking about something, then you skip on to something else, and subtitling can help you learning because you read it and you hear it at the same time, and then can make something clearer. So sometimes you need subtitling to, just make a summary of what is being said and make it clear to the audience. So I think, as you said earlier, it's probably the most growing sector now. And it's not like the very famous and glamorous part of the audiovisual sector, but it's the one that's working.
Okay. By the way, just to step in with our audience in Ukraine, I know at least two projects about audio description in Ukraine. The first one is probably, if Anastasia Struk is there, she must know about it. This is about the Lviv chapter of the All Ukrainian Union of People with Disabilities that they provided. And there is also Accessible Cinema project that they have even their own app. But the lack of the law base to make this mandatory makes it kind of grant-based project or volunteer-based project. So when governments don't support it, it doesn't felt by the industry that this is needed. But at least something is done. And the last but one project that I want to talk is about AVT and tech. I myself is not against machine translation or using CAT for subtitles, but only when it's not misused, when I receive lower salaries because they say that I don't need to translate everything. I still need to watch everything and to make sure that everything matches. And I also wanted to present you with a couple of interesting tech developments. For example, Amazon developed an automated approach for estimating the quality of translated subtitles. They mark them as good, bad, loose. And actually by loose, they mean the subtitles that convey the meaning by different means. That is for idiomatic. They worked with 30,000 video subtitles in English and corresponding translations in French, German, Italian, and Portuguese, and found out that the model was accurate in 99% of all languages cases of estimations. There's also a nice idea that hit Slater in May. Netflix doing automatic pre-processing of the subtitles. They created the so-called FIGS app. This is a API for English and corresponding translations in French, Italian, and German and Spanish that they use to simplify sentences and then to translate into low resource languages. One of them was, by the way, Ukrainian mentioned. But some people say that it really takes away the creative aspect of audiovisual content when you don't use idioms and you then translate from English when you don't know, for example, Japanese or Korean. So I wanted to ask our audience how panelists they use technologies in their translation and the QC. I know that some people are pretty masterful in it. Robert, can you start?
Yes, of course. Well, I'm sorry. I'm using, not losing. I'm using technology. I'm using a CAT tool for my subtitles translations. And it works pretty fine actually, because this CAT tool has a translation memory, and in this respect, I'm able, or I have the opportunity not to write repeated sentences to myself all the time. For example, if you have a film and they're shouting yes, no, whatever 20 times, I write it one time and then the machine does the rest for me. So it works. I have made Erfahrungen, help me schnell. Experiences, I'm sorry. I made experiences with just simple machine translations. And I really have to say, these machine translations alone don't work, because they just translate words, but not meaning. That's the problem. That's where you need a human linguist for. And that's where you are really have to take care that you're not get paid less, because actually sometimes with the machine translation, you have more work as if you would translate by yourself. So far to this first.
Ladies?
I think
if I might say...
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, bye. Go. Go. I know, I'm pretty sure we are going to say the same thing.
The possibility or what technology offers to us is great, and it's really not used enough yet, I think. And I think we should not underestimate what is possible. We will always, or at the time, we are really useful as editors, and it's really important. And there are some aspects, like, for instance, formality. Like in German, this is important. When you translate from English into German, English is always saying you. And in German, you have to decide whether it is the polite form or the impolite form. And the distinction is very difficult to make very often. So there are a couple of things that are very difficult by technology to be done. And at the moment, I don't know of any technological solution for it. I think what is important is that audiovisual translators are part of the technology picture, not only the companies, the big companies behind. So I think that we should all be as smart and as competent as we can, and understand what tools we can use. In my opinion, it is just like Robert says, not only machine translation, but it should also be a translation memory involved, because of the repetitions, that we want to be always consistent, which is sort of shocking me, because even the standard text for some of our clients needs to be entered all the time, and that is really not practical at all. So I think we should not be afraid of technology. We should use it. We should be a part of the game and be really handlers of the machines. And this should, we even need to be more competent in the long run. And we should be really smart also towards our clients, and really not be willing to accept too low rates because of the technology we are using. Valentina, was that what you were going to say?
I was going to say that, very famous chefs, they use KitchenAid, so we are allowed to use cartons, but in a way that is as efficient as we can. I mean, I do checklists, for example, on MemoQ to perform quality check on my own translation. So that way I can, spot. I don't know, sometimes I want to check that idiomatic sentences are properly translated. So I get a glossary, I turn it into a checklist, and that's pretty useful. And it spots mistakes by itself. So why shouldn't I use it? Or I use DeepL, for example, and let's not forget that machine engines for machine translation, they learn. They can be trained. So we can, on the one side, we could write for machine translation, which is what we do in other industries. For example, in the technical field, we write texts for machine translation. So the semantics is different, the sentences are different, the structure is different. We cannot do that, obviously, for entertainment products, but we can train machine translation, and the amount of material, the amount of words we translate is really huge. So we could train, and all that material is lost now. So we could use it to train machine translation and to help us to just work on the things that we are useful in. So you don't need a linguist to translate okay. You need a linguist to convey the meaning, to convey the sense, to convey the nuances. I
will agree with you.
And it's what I do in my job.
But I will also say that probably the use of different translation bases, etc., is also the case of different copyrights, etc. What I noticed is lacking in the MT. There are different names for it used by different companies. There are different engines. What is lacking and why the person is still winning is that the system doesn't match what is written in the text with who is saying what. And that's why we have gender misalignments, or sometimes we have gender alignment, but actually I can be a man talking about myself as a woman, as a joke or something else. The system does not match. The system does not recognize the voice, something that our brain makes in milliseconds, which is pretty amazing and hasn't been encompassed by any system yet. And to conclude the session, because we have less than 2 minutes, can you please bring the slides back? I wanted to say that it's interesting to continue this cooperation, these talks in different formats. There are not much unions where we can go to. As far as I know, there is a Eurasian Subtitles League which is mostly affiliated with one business structure in Moscow, but it wants to encompass people from many countries, including Ukraine, by the way, too. It is now a part of International Federation of Translators, and also signed a cooperative agreement with Avatea, in which there are individual persons from Russia, as far as I know, as well as from Assist. And I've also known that some people from Europe claim that everybody can go to Sakem and register their translation to receive royalties even from Netflix. It will be interesting to see these developments in future and to talk maybe at some other events online and on site. And I thank everybody who joined this panel. It was very interesting, and I hope that for our audiences online and on site at UTIC, it was too.
Thank you a lot, dear
Hello,
friends, dear
everybody, and
colleagues.
thank you.
Thank you, dear hosts. That was incredible that we can be here all together from different countries in this time. So I'm really, really happy that we can be part of this wonderful conference. And dear technicians, dear organizers, thanks a lot. You're great. And of course, chickens, chickens and hens.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you
Also from
also
my
from my
part,
part.
it was
It was a great pleasure.
Audiovisual translation is really super interesting. So you should probably just try it and have a closer look and get some information. There is information out there on YouTube, on blogs, and so forth. And it's really worth it. It's a lot of fun. It's a good way of working.
Thank you. I hope to see you on webinars and in our Zoom rooms. Please join us.
It's a great
Thank you.
pleasure. Thank you.